Hi, today's the 9th of January 2018 here in New Zealand. I always love the fact that we're in front of everybody else. Today I'm going to debunk the myth about that women are telling each other they need to feel confident about childbirth. As I said yesterday when we debunked the myth that women need to have a safe environment to birth, there are a series of myths about what we as women should sort of intuitively know or instinctively know, and I'm going to work my way through those. So this one is basically that as women, because we've always birthed, we should feel confident. And another way of saying that is when women say, I'm afraid of birth, the message back from particularly the natural birth community and midwives and those who have had good births is there's nothing to be afraid of. Women have always birthed. You'll know what to do on the day. Excuse me. Now, Birthing Better doesn't come from me. It comes from the hundreds of fathers and mothers that I worked with. So when I worked with people, and I'm a body worker originally, I'm a naturopath. I'm not a midwife. I'm not a doula. I'm not a childbirth educator. I'm not a person who is really politically interested in the debates around childbirth. Birthing Better families were always about all births in all situations. So even though individually they had issues with the hospital or the midwife or the obstetrician or what was being told with them, the fact was I couldn't solve those issues. The only thing that we could do was to deal with what we had, which was our pregnant body, which we all shared if we were pregnant, and the fact that we were going to give birth one way or the other, and that birth was an unknown. It was going to unfold, and that we had very little control over it. Even if we planned an elective cesarean, we could control the day, but we couldn't control how we felt or even what happened during the surgery. We always hoped for the best. So hoping for the best, whether we're going into labor or whether we're going to have elective cesarean, really already tells all of us that we as women don't have control over this unfolding experience. And the fact is that therefore we have some level of anxiety. So how anxious are women? Well, everything's on a scale because everybody's an individual. So there are definitely some women that are very confident about birth, and many of them had very good births, and so they feel that their second birth or their next birth is going to just be a replication of their first birth, so they're confident. But that doesn't mean that their next birth unfolds that way. And a lot of women I worked with got caught out because their next birth wasn't like their first birth. And they realized that they had a level of arrogance about it. And so it's also, we are hardwired, and this is what's really important, the message we need to give each other. We are hardwired to feel anxious about birth because it is so dynamic and transforming. So should we have confidence in ourselves? Sure, but where does confidence lie as humans? It doesn't lie in just leaping into faith. We are confident because we develop skills. 99% of the people who developed Birthing Better came from faith-based communities. I am not a faith-based person. I wasn't brought up within these faiths. This isn't how I view our humanity or how I view our world. However, everybody who comes from a faith, they have skills within their faith. So when I worked with people who were never going to go to the hospital, they learned practical skills, which was Birthing Better, and that gave them confidence because each woman knew her body. Each father or other knew how to help her cope. That's confidence building. But they also had skills around their faith. So they did things around their faith that built their confidence. That was fine. It wasn't something that I did. I focused on the body, and I focused on the confidence that we have by developing skills around preparing our pregnant body and how then to work through the birth of our baby. However, in the background, there is always this need, hardwired cellular need, to really have a heightened awareness. It's not just blindness, blind confidence. Because if we lived where there was no medical care, we would have to take care of ourselves. So I worked with many women who birthed on their own at home alone, either by intent or by accident. And all of them talked about how their anxiety increased. And moment to moment, as long as things were fine, they went with that moment because they could feel that things were fine. They didn't just go, yes, everything's fine. But when they felt something was becoming unfine, they had a refined sense of awareness, and they began to respond to that fine sense of awareness. They didn't go, oh, that's nothing. Oh, that's nothing. And the reason is that birth, labor, because if you're birthing at home alone, you are in labor. You're not having a cesarean. So what happens is that when we are on our own in birth, we both follow the moment, and if we're skilled, we follow the moment with skills. And then if we feel that something isn't all right, we are more aware of it sooner. We don't push it off. And so we begin to respond based on what that feeling is. Now, in the natural birth movement, they would call this instinct. But women without skills often instinctively react in a negative way because facing the reality isn't what they feel confident to do. So what Birthing Better Families decided was it doesn't matter if you have confidence or whether you lack confidence going into your birth. It doesn't matter on a scale of I'm confident to a scale I am terrified. It didn't matter. We just accepted that. We accepted that each individual woman has her own perception of birth, which ranges from confidence, and some confident people feel they don't need skills. But we worked with a lot of people who felt, yeah, I'm going to learn skills anyway, or their confidence led them into a situation where they were compromised, and they came back and said, next time I'm going to learn skills because I can feel confident, but I want the skills as the foundation. And we've had many Birthing Better families that range way at that end of being totally terrified or anxious or fearful about birth. As they learn skills, that fear does come down, because when I talked about the gift of fear, is it going to be dead in 5 minutes? If not, is it going to be dead in 12 hours? If not, is it going to be, do you have to pay attention for the next 72 hours? Well, birth isn't going to usually last that long. So if you're just terrified, you don't know how to ask those questions. So you're not able to discern the difference between whether you have to be really anxious and do something now, or whether you can just be observant, and that's important for you to know. So what we want you to know is that it's okay to be terrified. It's okay to lack confidence. The more you become skilled, the more you will gain confidence. Now, what are the skills that women use to gain their greatest level of confidence? That's a hard one to explain because we never know which skill is going to be the most important. So each of you as a woman who's pregnant now, you have to start to ask yourself, where are your gaps? What do you feel the least confident about? Is it your breathing? Is it how you're going to deal with if you have more interventions than you would have liked to? Is it because you had a bad birth last time and you're uncertain about this birth? Is it whether you're afraid that your baby's too big for your body? Is it that you feel that your partner isn't going to help you the way that you would like? Is it that you feel that your medical conditions are going to stop you from having an empowered birth? What is your gaps? What are the things that you lack confidence in? In that case, you want to then learn skills around that. And that's why it's very hard for us at Birthing Better to say, learn this skill and you'll have more confidence. Learn this skill, you'll have more confidence. We never dealt with it that way. We always dealt with the individual. What did they lack confidence in? And how could we either share skills that we already had or develop skills that we didn't have? And that's why Birthing Better grew so extensively. People say, oh my God, there's so much in it. But that tells us something really profound, which is that skills are so under the radar that there is no societal expectation that anybody really becomes skilled. And that all of the skills-based methods out there are for people that want this non-medical, pain-free birth, if possible, rather than skills for all births, which is where Birthing Better always started and will always be. So there is this gap in the collective childbirth consciousness that it's filled with choices, overflowing with choices and birth plans. But there isn't. Where do you find skills? And so when we say that Birthing Better is extensive, people go, how can there be something missing in childbirth that extensive? It's because it's missing. Skills are missing. And we fill them with extensive skills for all births. And this is where people then end up with a conflict, because every woman wants to feel in control in her birth, no matter how that birth unfolds. And right now, the collective societal mental focus is plan it. See it as an event and plan it. And what we're saying is see it as an activity and become skilled. And it's as simple as that. When we believe that skills are what you fundamentally will use while you do the activity of birthing your baby. The choices are, honestly, when you're driving to the hospital to have an elective cesarean, it may take you 10 minutes, it may take you an hour and a half to get there. What choices are you putting in place at that moment? What skills could you be using to fill that time and to get closer to your partner and feel calmer? If you're in labor, what choices are you making right now, right this second? But you're breathing in and you're breathing out. So that's a skill. Your body is in some posture, some position. That's a skill. So the activity is what you do, and what you do is what you remember you've done, whether your choices unfold. So what we want to debunk in this myth is it doesn't matter whether you have confidence about birth or not. If you have confidence, that's great. And what we encourage you to do from our vast experience globally is to become skilled. Because back up your confidence with skills. Don't just be blind. Too many women, when they tell their birth stories, talk about how confident they felt and how they were blindsided as birth unfolded. We're all blindsided as birth unfolds, but what we want to do is to have the skills to work with it as it unfolds. So if you have wonderful confidence about your birth, back up your confidence with skills. If you are on the other end of it and you are terrified of birth, it's okay to be terrified of birth. Just have skills and commit to saying, I'm scared and I'm going to breathe in and open up and I'm going to breathe out and soften. I'm terrified. I'm going to make certain that every time I stand up, I'm going to soften around my rectum and around my tailbone and my sacrum. It doesn't matter how you feel, and this is what's important that we as women tell each other and explain to one another. It doesn't matter. We can't all feel confident or lack fear around childbirth because it's hardwired in us to feel fear and anxiety, because without the medical profession, we had to take care of ourselves. So the hardwired anxiety and fear primed us to become aware. And when we were aware, we were more able to respond to situations through that gift of fear, which was to determine whether we had to act now, whether we could observe and then needed to act, or whether we could observe and we could watch what was going on. Humans have huge internal perceptive capabilities, but those capabilities need to be trained through the use of skills. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Please, once again, share this video in other social media forums. We need the conversation around childbirth to change. It has focused, when I gave birth, on skills for a few. which was for those seeking natural or non-medical birth who hoped for pain-free labors. That didn't work. And then it was focused on people to have choices, and that hasn't worked. So what are we left with? We are left with having to morph to a new childbirth conversation. And that childbirth conversation is that we need skills for everybody, and it's wonderful if they also have choices. So see you tomorrow, and we'll debunk some more myths around childbirth. Bye-bye.